Hi everyone, welcome back to Virtual Muse, the MST3K of RPGs, where I sit alone in space playing games with a robot. Today, we're continuing our story based on Plan 9 from Outer Space, using Sharpbound Solo from Sharpbound Games. Last time, Ruby Fields and Max Nichols were following a dry creek bed through scrubby forest understory, trying to quickly get away from the aliens and robot, which were trying to find them after they escaped from the abandoned house and made a break for it. Their intent is to follow the dry creek bed as a way to move quickly and quietly through the tangled woods, relying on the mist and darkness to hide them from view, and ultimately reach the outskirts of town where Professor Thaddeus lives. Professor Thaddeus is just a normal academic in his day job, but privately he has a strong interest in the unusual and paranormal, and always seems to know a lot about strange Fortean things. So Ruby and Max believe he might be able to help them understand what's going on with the aliens and Vampira. Ruby knows Professor Thaddeus because he visits the nightclub somewhat regularly, but Max has known him even longer because Thaddeus is an old friend of Max's father. We'll pick up again with Ruby and Max making their way through the dry creek bed.
Sounds like a blast, Silas. I've been itching to dive back into that world and see what kind of campy adventures we can get up to.
After re-watching the original the other night, I've got some new ideas.
I'm intrigued. Which story threads in particular caught your attention, and how do you think we can weave them into our game?
I was thinking, since Colonel Edwards is shown being handed a folder containing a classified report about the aliens, and then that folder is never mentioned again in the movie, we could say that it got lost and found by a reporter or something, and the truth about the incident with the aliens leaked.
That's great. We could have the reporter who finds the folder start investigating the incident. Maybe they stumble upon some of the surviving characters from the movie, leading to some interesting interactions and plot twists.
Yeah, and the reporter could have formed a theory about the Army's knowledge of the aliens and their decades-long cover-up.
I love where this is going. We could create a web of intrigue, with the reporter digging deeper and uncovering more evidence of the government's involvement with the aliens. Maybe they even stumble upon some of the alien technology that was recovered from the crash site. Something advanced enough to be unrecognizable to humans. Maybe a strange device that manipulates energy fields or distorts space-time.
Those space-time distortions could link to Plan 9 in the aliens' resurrection of zombie minions.
We could explore how the government tries to harness that power, and the consequences of playing with forces beyond human control. They probably attempted to use it for military gain, trying to create super soldiers or harness its power for advanced warfare. But given the unpredictable nature of space-time distortions, it could have led to catastrophic consequences.
Nice. X-Files vibes.
Exactly. We're blending the eerie atmosphere of Plan 9 with the conspiratorial vibes of the X-Files. This mix of genres could lead to some really intriguing and suspenseful moments in our story.
I like the idea of introducing government agents to the story. Their attempts to quash the investigation and keep the cover-up going will add another whole layer of complexity to this situation. I try to follow John Truby's four-corner opposition theory of storytelling. The idea is that the most dynamic stories have four different forces at work, which are all mutually opposed to each other simultaneously. Now we have our heroes, the aliens, and the government. We'll leave the fourth corner of opposition open and see what emerges to fill it during the game.
The government agents could be working directly with the military to contain the situation, adding an air of menace to the story. as Ruby and Max navigate the web of conspiracy and deception.
Maybe the agents are augmented in some way with the reverse-engineered alien tech.
Fantastic. Augmented agents could have enhanced abilities or unpredictable powers from the alien tech, making them formidable foes. It'll keep Ruby and Max on their toes, for sure.
I love this. Having the agents be powerful cyborgs fits perfectly with the over-the-top, cheesy B-movie aesthetic. Also, last time, we were using the minute-by-minute game engine, along with Sharpmon Solo, where we ask a new Oracle question that will influence the plot for every minute of game time. I want to keep using that game engine, but I don't really want to play out every minute of them walking through the dry creek bed. Let's time skip to when they arrive at Professor Thaddeus' place, and just give ourselves 5 Oracle questions to ask, and to reflect that at least 5 minutes of walking went by. I already have 2 Oracle questions in mind. First, we know Professor Thaddeus has been to the nightclub many times, so he's probably seen Vampira perform. That makes me wonder, does he already suspect something about Vampira's background? That could be the reason he goes to the nightclub. He's subtly observing or gathering observations to fuel his speculations about aliens. We'll ask the Oracle, does Thaddeus already suspect the truth about Vampira? And flip a coin. Heads, yes. Tails, no. Heads, yes. He goes to the nightclub specifically to see Vampira, because he already suspects something about her. For our second question, I'm wondering if the aliens had some way to track the laser rifle Ruby took from them in the fight last time. It might give off a specific energy signature or have a built-in homing beacon they can follow. We'll ask the Oracle, can the aliens track the rifle? And flip a coin. Tails. No, they can't. So it isn't passively trackable. But I'm tempted to say there's still some chance the aliens pick up the energy signature every time the rifle is actively used. I'll roll 1d12 each time Ruby fires the rifle. And on 12, they catch the energy signature and can locate her from it.
For our next 3 Oracle questions, maybe we could explore the professor's home environment. We could ask things like, is Professor Thaddeus alone when Ruby and Max arrive? And does he have some kind of security system? And are there any suspicious objects or symbols visible in his home?
I'll flip a coin for each of those, in that order. No, he isn't alone when they arrive. Yes, he has some kind of security system in place. Yes, there are suspicious objects visible in the professor's home. Maybe the objects relate to the alien technology Ruby and Max encountered before. I imagine these objects are older, recovered from UFO wreckage over the years, but it's recognizably the same type of stuff they saw in the abandoned house, where they discovered the aliens were hiding out.
Nice. And I think the security system could be something unconventional, like a network of hidden cameras and motion detectors, combined with some homemade alarm systems, maybe even a few strategically placed tripwires to deter unwanted visitors. The misty air is thick with a sense of unease and tension as Ruby and Max navigate through the dense underbrush. The dry creek bed is lined with twisted tree roots and jagged rocks, making every step a precarious balancing act.
Ruby and Max leave the dry creek bed when they see the lights of Professor Thaddeus' house. They make their way up a rocky declivity out of the middle of the rut in the ground. The glowing windows are a few hundred feet away. We know there are tripwires, motion sensors, and alarms between here and the house, but Ruby doesn't know that. I think it makes sense to say this is a sneaking challenge, because sneaking successfully means being generally aware of your surroundings, and not bumping into anything by accident. This isn't only about avoiding Thaddeus' security system for its own sake. It's also about avoiding setting off an alarm and attracting the alien's attention. If an alarm starts blaring, it won't only alert Thaddeus about intruders. If that was all, it probably wouldn't be an issue, because Ruby and Max will soon just announce themselves to him anyway. The problem is that if an alarm blares, the pursuing aliens might notice the sound and head this way. Ruby's skill score for sneaking is 6, so she needs to roll 6 or more on 2d6 to manage this. She succeeds. She notices a tripwire at one point, and they detour around it. At another point, she spots what she thinks might be a motion-activated floodlight mounted on a dead tree, and they keep their distance from it just in case. It takes a minute to cross a few hundred feet because they're taking extra care, but she leads the way, and she and Max make it over the parched ground without incident. They walk onto Professor Thaddeus' porch and knock on his door. They hear 2 voices inside go silent suddenly, then footsteps as someone approaches the door.
I think Professor Thaddeus is taken aback by their sudden arrival, especially given the state Max is in. The presence of the laser rifle will likely raise his suspicions, and he may be cautious about letting them in. He'll probably ask them what's going on and what happened to Max before deciding whether to invite them inside. His tone will be concerned but guarded, trying to gauge what they're after.
The other person in the house looks out over Thaddeus' shoulder and sees the rifle, and sees that Max is injured. Ruby pushes over the threshold and shuts the door behind them, because she has a great sense of urgency in this situation.
Ruby's urgency might catch Thaddeus off guard, and he may protest slightly, but the other person is thrilled by the sudden intrusion and starts peppering Ruby with questions about the laser rifle and the aliens.
I just remembered another minute went by as they crossed the ground and got to the porch, so it's time for an oracle question. We'll tie that into what's happening. We know Ruby assumes there are aliens nearby and was careful not to set off an alarm, which could draw their attention here, but we don't know how real that danger actually was. We'll ask the oracle, are the aliens nearby, or did Ruby and Max shake them off completely for now? I'll flip a coin. Heads, yes, there are aliens nearby. The result is tails. No, they're in the clear for now and shook off pursuit. What about the person who was there already with the professor when Ruby and Max arrived? Who do you imagine it is?
Someone unexpected, like a local eccentric or a mystic who's also researching the paranormal activity in the area.
I like the idea that this person is a local eccentric. Maybe they saw odd lights in the sky or something, or claim to have received psychic messages from the aliens, and they're telling Professor Thaddeus about it. Maybe this person frequently visits Thaddeus with weird claims and theories, because Thaddeus is the only person who doesn't immediately dismiss them as a crackpot.
That makes sense, Silas. If this local eccentric is used to sharing their wild theories with Professor Thaddeus, perhaps the professor has a bit of a soft spot for this person. Or maybe he's simply humoring them while gathering data for his own research. What kind of vibe do you think this eccentric should give off? Are they enthusiastic, nervous, or maybe a bit unstable?
I imagine this person is enthusiastic, flighty, and easy for people to dismiss when they spin their stories about aliens, psychic messages, or make claims about being abducted. The irony is that the stories about aliens are true, and this person's specific claims may have more merit than anyone suspects.
I love that twist. The contrast between this person's self-proclaimed expertise and the actual truth of their experiences adds a layer of humor and commentary on societal perceptions of conspiracy theories. It could also create an interesting dynamic where Ruby and Max are initially dismissive, only to discover that this eccentric might actually hold a crucial piece of information that helps unravel the mystery. I imagine this person's name is something like Zephyr, and they're a free-spirited individual with a flair for drama and a tendency to be a bit scattered. They're probably dressed in layers of colorful clothing with feathers or crystals adorning their outfit, and they might carry around a worn-out journal full of notes and sketches related to their alleged paranormal encounters.
What about the psychic messages they claim to have recently received from the aliens? What was that message?
Prepare the nexus point, or the star aligns with the crescent moon. Something cryptic and open-ended that could mean anything, but Zephyr is convinced it's a vital warning or prophecy.
So maybe Thaddeus doubts the substance of the message means much of anything, but is intrigued by the underlying idea that certain sensitive individuals might be able to overhear the aliens' communications, sort of like sensors receiving radio waves.
So he's exploring the possibility of humans acting as unwitting antennae for alien signals. Zephyr might be tuning in to something real, even if they're interpreting it in a vague or metaphorical way.
I doubt Thaddeus started believing this was possible on the basis of nothing. He's interested in unconventional things, but he's not a nut. I imagine there was something he knows to be true about the aliens from the leaked classified report, which Zephyr also seemed to know at one point. That became the basis for Thaddeus believing there's more to Zephyr's stories than everyone assumes. Now, back to the main action. What about Max? Do you imagine he says anything, or is he simply going along with things as Ruby takes control of the situation?
I think Max is still trying to process everything that's happened, so he's likely following Ruby's lead without questioning her. He might mutter something brief about needing to sit down due to his injury, but mostly he'll be observing Thaddeus and Zephyr's reactions to their arrival.
So Max goes along with it as Ruby maneuvers him towards a couch where he can sit down. She tells Zephyr to help, and Thaddeus mentions that there's a first aid kit in the bathroom cabinet. They all spend a minute using alcohol and bandages and dressing Max's injuries, while Ruby describes the circumstances and how they stumble upon an odd scene in an abandoned house. And then a UFO appeared and unleashed a robot to pursue them, and they narrowly escaped from it.
During this exchange, Zephyr is likely listening intently to Ruby's story, probably interrupting with excited questions and comments about aliens and psychic connections. Meanwhile, Thaddeus might seem concerned about Max's injuries, but his eyes may flicker towards Ruby, gauging how much she knows and whether she's telling the whole truth.
Ruby explains that the laser rifle is from the aliens, and she took it from them during a fight in the abandoned house, which is also where Max was injured. Thaddeus interjects, asking how they found the abandoned house in the first place. Ruby takes a deep breath and backs up, starting the story from the beginning, and describing how Vampira's performance at the club was interrupted when someone was shot in the audience, and she chased the assailant out of the club, and it turned out to be the alien using a laser. She also explains that she believes she saw the alien at the club 2 days earlier, observing Vampira, so she believes Vampira is at the center of all this, and the aliens are after her.
I think Thaddeus is starting to piece together a larger puzzle, and his expression becomes increasingly grave as Ruby shares more details. Zephyr, on the other hand, seems electrified by the prospect of Vampira being at the center of an alien conspiracy, and might begin speculating wildly about psychic connections and interdimensional forces at work.
Now another minute has passed, so we ask another oracle question. We'll ask, did this treatment help Max enough that he's right back to full HP now? Or is he still going to need a night's rest to recover? Tails, no. He's stable and his injuries are clean, but he'll still need a night's rest before he's back to normal. I think Ruby says to Thaddeus that they need a safe place to stay for the night, and she doesn't want to go back to her own apartment because it would be easy for the aliens to trace them there and stage an ambush.
Thaddeus will likely agree to let them stay, given the circumstances, and offer them a room in his house. Zephyr might chime in, offering to show Max to the guest room and help him get settled, while Thaddeus tries to discuss the details of their plan with Ruby.
Ruby admits that she doesn't know what to do next, and says they hoped Thaddeus could help them figure this out and give them some direction. Given his extensive knowledge about the paranormal, she imagined this strange situation was in his wheelhouse. She thinks the next thing they should do is try to find Vampira because she might be able to help give them answers. But she isn't sure how to go about that, since nobody knows anything about Vampira, where she lives, etc.
Thaddeus nods thoughtfully, steepling his fingers as he considers Ruby's words. He leans forward, his eyes locked on hers, and says, "Actually, I might know someone who can help us track down Vampira. The club owner is rumored to have connections to the paranormal scene. He might be willing to share some information, but we'll need to approach him carefully. Thaddeus has dealt with him before, and he thinks the owner might be willing to share information, especially if they approach him discreetly. But Thaddeus will need to make some calls and arrange a meeting, which could take some time."
That's fine. The situation is urgent, but while they wait for Max to rest and recover, they'll have a few hours to spare anyway.
Maybe we can use that time to learn more about Vampira's performances and the club where she sings. Knowing her schedule and habits might give us a lead on where to start looking for her.
I think Ruby's habit of catching all Vampira's performances really helps now, because she has a fairly complete knowledge of her schedule, and maybe she's even got glimpses of where she comes from or where she goes.
Ruby might recall Vampira mentioning something in passing during one of her performances, or maybe she noticed a pattern to her entrances or exits that could give away where she's headed. It's worth asking Ruby to think back through all the shows she's seen and see if anything stands out as useful information.
Thaddeus walks out of the room to make his calls, and Zephyr carries on the conversation, asking Ruby to think back on everything she knows about Vampira. I think this should be a personality challenge for Ruby, because this depends on if she ever got Vampira to talk to her, or say anything which helps her now. 4 and 5. That's above her skill 5, so Vampira told her something once, which she remembers now. What do you imagine that is?
Zephyr's question sparks something in Ruby's memory, and she recalls a night when she managed to corner Vampira backstage and strike up a conversation. Vampira had mentioned something about an old abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, saying it was her favorite place to escape the city and clear her head. Ruby hadn't paid much attention to it at the time, but now it might be worth investigating.
That's a solid lead. I think Ruby is impulsive enough that she might wait for Max to fall asleep before heading there herself. I imagine Zephyr would insist on going with her.
I think Ruby would appreciate Zephyr's enthusiasm and willingness to accompany her. She might consider Zephyr's presence a comfort. Zephyr might even serve as a useful distraction or extra pair of eyes during their reconnaissance mission.
I think they wait until Max falls asleep in the bed in the guest room, and then Ruby and Zephyr leave the house, heading for the commercial district on the outskirts of town to look through the abandoned building.
As they sneak out of the house, Ruby is likely thinking about how they'll snoop around the warehouse without drawing attention to themselves. She might be considering possible entry points, looking for signs of recent occupation, or wondering if Vampira has left any hidden messages or clues within the abandoned building.
I think that's a perfect cliffhanger to end on. Ruby holds the alien laser rifle in the crook of one arm and a flashlight in the other hand, walking cautiously out of Thaddeus' place with Zephyr, heading into the night.
Sounds like a great ending to our session. Ruby and Zephyr's nighttime expedition to the warehouse should yield some interesting discoveries. I'm looking forward to seeing where this investigation takes us next. If you want to catch the next episode, remember to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell.